The Battle of Crait is one of the worst things to come out of The Last Jedi, and that's saying something, because there was a lot of competition. The battle itself is a poorly constructed, tactical embarrassment from both sides, and today, I'm going to break down exactly why the Battle of Crait made me go back to losing myself in the bottom of a chocolate milk carton. So let's get started. The Battle of Crait happens in the first place because the Resistance retreats down to Crait after having a giant space chase with the First Order, which was a terrible story itself, by the way, but that's a video for another time. They hope to escape to Crait because, according to Leia, the First Order is tracking their bigger ships through hyperspace, and they're not tracking the smaller ships. There's literally no reason that Leia would know this, because she didn't even know that tracking through hyperspace was a thing in the first place, but okay. So they all leave in tiny transports to head down to the surface, under the assumption that the First Order won't notice them. This tactic fails for several reasons. Number one,
we ran a decloaking scan, and sure enough, 30 Resistance transports had just launched from the cruiser.
And number two, the First Order all have frickin' eyes. You're not that far away, and you can see something surprisingly well when it's silhouetted against a black canvas, such as space. Even if they hadn't scanned the transports, someone at some point in the First Order would have glanced out the window and yelled, "Holy plot convenience, Batman! There are ships out there!" Anyway, long story short, the First Order sees them and follows them down to Crait. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this, but the most infuriating part of the Battle of Crait is at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around until then so you don't miss it. Sorry, I just forgot to mention that earlier. Now back to the video. The reason that the Resistance is going to Crait in the first place is because there was an old rebel base there from the Empire days. It's very well armored and has tech, weapons, and ships. The gang lands there and starts to set up base. They send a desperate signal for help out into the galaxy and pray that some Resistance sympathizers respond. They even use Leia's personal code, but spoiler alert, no one comes. This makes no sense for a couple reasons. First of all, why would Resistance sympathizers not show up? If this really is the Resistance's final stand, then why was everyone else just sitting on the sidelines? And second of all, if they didn't come the first time that the Resistance called, why the heck did they come the second time in The Rise of Skywalker? It feels to me like the mentality would have been something along the lines of, well, we didn't go last time and they were fine. We probably can skip this one out and they'll live. But whatever. Bottom line is, no one shows up. Then the First Order decides to lead a full-out frontal ground assault. That's fine and all, but for crying out loud, why did you put your freaking army so far away from them? You know the exact location of the Resistance. You can land wherever the frick you want, and yet you decided to make your machines trek from Narnia. Then it's revealed that the First Order has a giant laser battering ram, which is gonna be used to punch through the front door. That seems like a weird device to exist, when it would be so much easier to just take the big guns from your Star Destroyer and put them on the ground. But anyway, now they have to drag that big battering ram laser into range, which is infuriating for two reasons. Number one, it's a laser. It should be just as powerful from a long way away as it would be up close. And number two, why didn't you just frickin' land closer, you useless sacks of bantha fodder? It's not that hard. Curse you, Ryan. The Resistance sees them coming and start getting into pre-dug trenches and giant stationary guns, which apparently still work despite the 30 years of neglect since the rebels last used them. Geez, if I leave my microwave outside for like a week, it'll be a garden by the time I go get it. Plus, Crait is a salt planet, and if I recall basic science correctly, salt makes metal rust faster, so leaving giant metal guns outside for 30 years on a salt planet makes a lot of sense. Anyway, the Resistance prepares to fight, and holy cow, this angle really shows you just how far away the First Order is. I can make a 5-course meal by the time the walkers would even be in full view. Also, come to think of it, why is literally every Resistance member just sitting outside in the trenches? I mean, I guess Leia is inside, but aside from that, every remaining member of the Resistance is just plopped down in holes in the ground, waiting to get gunned down by AT-M6s and TIE fighters. There's not even a reason for the First Order to try to breach the fort. All of their targets are just waiting in the open. Anyway, Finn and the gang decide to go face down the First Order head on with these weird speeder things that apparently need you to be in contact with the ground, but only give you one ski so that you're incredibly off balance, and also have you sit on the far left side of the vehicle, and also have apparently just been pulled out of a dumpster out in the back. These things are awful. I'll give them some credit, because this is an accurate representation of what tech looks like after it's been abandoned for 30 years. But honestly, if I'm a Resistance pilot, and they tell me that I'm gonna have to go out there and face down the First Order in this thing, I'll just take the firing squad at that point. I really don't want to get shot down while I'm stuck in this death trap. It also doesn't help that I have a total of 12 other dumpster mobiles to give me support. Speaking of support, the ground forces finally decided to start laying down some cover fire. Probably could have used that sooner, but better late than never, I guess. But for some reason, they have absolutely atrocious aim. One of the reasons that they use blaster bolts instead of bullets in Star Wars is because blaster bolts don't drop over distance, like bullets do. But dang, there are like 9 shots that just straight up hit the ground in front of the walkers. I get that it looks cool when red stuff goes poof, Ryan, but honestly, give the Resistance a little credit. If you want to hit the ground in Star Wars, you literally have to try. You ever wonder why in literally every Star Wars battle, the bullets usually stay horizontal? Yeah, it's because the only way to get them to hit the ground is if you aim at the floor, genius. That's why whenever someone uses a sniper, they always aim exactly where they mean to hit their target. There's no need to account for bullet drop. And it's different if the walkers hit the ground when they're shooting at the resistance, because they are looking down on them, both literally and figuratively. But the men in the trenches and the big guns have to be aiming up at the AT-M6s in order to actually hit them. Clearly, however, they don't. Apparently, the resistance couldn't figure that one out. Anyway, the junkyard speeders keep barreling towards the First Order like a bunch of headless chickens. And I say it like that because they don't have a plan or anything. After you realize that, you never look at this scene the same way again. The resistance just sent out all of their pilots to die for literally no reason. They never once address what they're planning to do when they get there. They just start going, get most of the way there, and then turn around. I guess when they were planning this quote-unquote attack, they didn't really plan an objective. And for any of you who are about to comment some reason that you picked up on from the movie's subtle hints as to why they're flying out to meet the First Order, my response is that you should stop writing the script for them. If they have an objective, then the audience should know just as well as the characters. Also, on a side note, just a quick honorary mention. This dumpster DeLorean right here blows up for absolutely no reason whatsoever. It doesn't get shot, none of the sides hit the ground, and then boom! It just explodes into a giant fireball, smashing into the ground. Just like you should smash that subscribe button, because it really helps me out. Thanks. Right after that one spontaneously combusts, the TIE fighters start coming in and attacking the trash Zoom Zooms. And as you might expect, the Zoom Zooms very quickly become a death trap. They're getting lit up by TIE fighters. It's honestly surprising to me that any garbage gizmos even survived the first wave of TIE fighters, but luckily, the Millennium Falcon shows up just in time to save the day. That was lucky, but I can't blame Rian Johnson for that. The Millennium Falcon always saves the day. But what I can blame Rian Johnson for is the cheesiest dialogue in this entire movie.
He threw them off! All of them! Oh, they hate that shit!
Naturally, Kylo Ren gets really emotional and makes a completely irrational decision, which happens a lot in this battle. He orders all of the TIE fighters to follow and destroy the Falcon. This is really dumb. Sending your entire fleet of TIE fighters after one ship is kind of overkill, especially since the TIE fighters are the best way to destroy the trash speeders. It's way easier for the TIE fighters to react to the trash speeders' sudden movements than the walkers, since the speeders do have a little pep in their step. Regardless, the AT-M6s do start shooting at the speeders. And maybe I was wrong, because the AT-M6s start laying waste to those things. So much so, that Poe orders them to turn around and pull back. But Finn decides that he's too close to give up, so he barrels straight towards the mouth of the cannon. Now, let me explain why this is such an important moment for Finn. He has spent the last two movies not caring about anything but Rey and himself. He tried to run in The Force Awakens, and he tried to run in the beginning of The Last Jedi. But now, he gets it. He realizes the importance of fighting for a cause greater than himself. He's willing to sacrifice himself to save his friends and give the resistance a chance to fight another day. But before any of that can happen, Rose Tico barrels out from the side and crashes into him, mere seconds before he can hit the cannon. This is the definition of pure stupidity for several reasons. First of all, how did Rose even get into a position where she's physically able to do this? To explain why the schematics of this scene don't work in any physical way whatsoever, I'm gonna hand you guys over to IRL Jedward. It's me, IRL Jedward, here in the flesh to explain to you why the schematics of Rose saving Finn make absolutely no sense in any context whatsoever. Sorry if my voice is a bit echoey, I'm in a fairly big room right now. That's irrelevant. Here, right now, is Finn. And back here is everyone else turning away. And as you can see, they're all a good distance away from him. They're all like along that line, and he's right here, and he's barreling straight towards the First Order, and these suckers are all barreling right back towards the base. So Finn's maintaining top speed as fast as he can towards this cannon right here. And everyone else, like you can see on the side here, no one else has turned around yet. So Finn's over here, and when he's about here, somehow Rose comes in from the side, barrels into him, and knocks him off to the side right here, and they all crash, and they should have died, but we'll get to that later in the video. But how is that possible? It shouldn't be physically possible. Because Rose simply did not have time to go all the way back from, she was probably like here, let's say she was here. She did not have time to go back all the way from here, loop all the way back around like this, come like this, and then turn 90 degrees and come at Finn from the side in the same amount of time that it took him to go from here to here. She has a much longer route to take, and Finn has a much shorter route to take, and yet she still beats him to the punch somehow. It makes no sense. Anyway, this is me, IRL Jedward, signing off and going back to voiceover Jedward, but subscribe and likes are free. Alright, thank you. Thank you, IRL Jedward. I couldn't possibly have said it better myself. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you want to see IRL Jedward cameo in more of my videos. The second reason that Rose ramming Finn was a very bad idea is that there was a very, very good chance that they both would have died in the resulting crash. I wouldn't trust these speeders to protect me from getting rear-ended, let alone smashing for several hundred feet along the ground. Then again, it is Disney Star Wars. If Kylo Ren can survive this in Rise of Skywalker... Then I guess this would pretty much be a walk in the park. Lastly, now that Rose and Finn both somehow lived, you are mere feet away from the AT-M6s. If I were Kylo Ren, I would just tell the gunners to shoot the survivors. So not only did Rose stop Finn from potentially saving the Resistance, she also should have gotten herself and Finn killed, no matter how you slice it. Tell me, did anyone enjoy this character's presence in the movie? I mean, I really think that I could have gone without her. Then she has the pure audacity to say this to Finn.
I saved you. Tell me, that's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
Rose, I hate to break it to you, but it's going to be very hard for you to win since your entire Resistance is trapped in that fort that just got cracked open like an egg. I'm so glad you saved one thing you loved, but you probably should have gotten killed by the First Order right after you crashed. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you have to destroy what you hate in order to save what you love when it comes to war. For a little proof, look at, oh, I don't know, every single war in history? Jeez, the stupidity of this character. And by the way, to anyone listening, no one hates her because she's an Asian woman. Kelly Marie Tran is a good actor and she did the best she could with what she had, which wasn't much, but the character of Rose is just such a bad character. Alright, glad that's cleared up. Anyway, the First Order blows open the Resistance base and starts advancing forward. Leia has just been told that their call for help has been received, but no one is coming. But out of the darkness, a figure emerges. It's none other than Luke Skywalker himself. He has a quick conversation with Leia and then walks outside to face down the entire First Order with nothing but a laser sword. Now this part of the Battle of Crait really grinds my gears. It's exceptionally bad, and there's one big reason for that. Luke Skywalker walks outside and the entire army screeches to a halt. Kylo Ren literally tells Hux not to move an inch until after they defeated Luke Skywalker. And that probably is the dumbest tactical decision ever. Here's an idea. Why don't you go down to face him yourself and send the rest of your troops into the base after the Resistance, maybe keeping a couple of platoons of soldiers for yourself? It makes no sense. There is literally zero reason for the entire military force that you have with you to watch this little grudge match between you and your former master. Send in your troops at the same time and ensure that the Resistance can't escape. But no. Meanwhile, the Resistance finds a way out of the fort, which is really lucky because that door was supposed to be the only way in or out. And when we get outside, who do we see but everyone's favorite Mary Sue, who up until this point has been surprisingly absent from this video. And of course, it's only natural that she can lift like 3 dozen boulders after she spent half a day swinging a lightsaber in circles. Remember when Luke couldn't even concentrate on lifting like 8 rocks after training with Yoda for weeks? Yeah, well, Rey can do it after a week on an island with a grumpy old man. Honestly, I'm not even surprised anymore. Luke was one of the best characters in Star Wars, who everyone loved, and Rey is an overpowered Mary Sue, who basically everyone hates. And there are genuine reasons for that. Rey is by far a worse character than Luke Skywalker, for many reasons. To really understand what makes Luke so superior, you need to watch this video right here. It'll explain it all in great detail, and give you a much better understanding of how Disney ruined Star Wars.